The worst workplace stalker I ever had was a woman that I nicknamed Greed for reasons that I will explain. For safety reasons, I will not disclose her real name in this video, but I've spoken about her multiple times on this channel. All I'm going to say about Greed is that she had a husband and 2 kids and a PhD in chemical engineering from one of the best engineering schools in my country. And she worked for an engineering firm on one of the top floors in one of the tallest downtown skyscrapers in the 4th largest city in the 3rd largest country in the world. Greed threw almost every workplace bullying technique in the book at me, ranging from space invasion, nose holding, dirty looks, ridicule, and insults to gossip, lying, and stalking, including dressing like me and doing her hair like me. But let's just start with the staring. So almost every time I looked up from my computer, Greed was walking slowly down the hall, staring intently at me. She followed me down the hall so she could stare at my ass. She followed me into the kitchen. She followed me into the bathroom, even immediately after she herself had just used it. She literally turned around so that she could follow me back in there. And if she was in a meeting or just in someone else's office, she would interrupt the meeting or exit the office so she could follow me down the hall again to stare at my ass. Anyway, one day I did what I never do and what I advise you never do. I confronted a workplace bully. I asked Greed to stop staring at me. She was so upset she had to immediately get up to go gossip about me with the coworker who sat in the office next to hers and who also bullied me because he was sexually attracted to me. That was the Friday after Thanksgiving. That Sunday night, I went for a run in my city's Central Park. And guess what? Because Greed could no longer stare at me in the workplace, she followed me to the park so she could stare at me there, even though she had admitted to me not only that she did not run, but also did not exercise at all. Greed was walking, dressed in all black, just like me, and of course, staring intensely at me. She was one of, I've counted, at least half a dozen former workplace bullies who stalked me around that park and around another city park where I also ran. How she knew I ran there, to this day, I don't know. I assume she made an educated guess, but it is possible that she followed me one day after work because workplace bullies do that too. I still wonder what her husband thought about his closeted bisexual wife abandoning their small children on a school night so she could stalk a female coworker around a dark city park, not to mention running out and blowing the family budget on a very expensive leather jacket so she could dress just like me. And the next morning at work, Greed was staring at me again. I'm sharing this story because I think it illustrates a couple of points I make about workplace bullying. The first is that anytime we assert boundaries with workplace bullies, they will not only not stop the behavior, they will double down on it. They will escalate. That's why I keep saying never confront workplace bullies. Just as Dr. Ramani says, never call out a narcissist. If you do that, it activates both their toxic shame and their rage. And I absolutely guarantee you they will retaliate every single time, even in ways that are downright scary and borderline illegal. Also, as Melanie Tanya Evans tells us, anytime we tell narcissists what we do not like, we are simply handing them the bullets to shoot us with. For example, if you go on a date with a narcissist and you say, well, my last partner cheated on me and that was really hurtful and I don't want that to happen again, the narcissist is just sitting there rubbing his hands together in glee and delight, taking notes and saying to himself, oh good, now I know how to really get you. Another point I want to make with my Greed story is just to go more in depth into this concept of workplace bullying as truly a spiritual disease. Because narcissists are so empty and superficial, they are very easily distracted by pretty shiny things. It's like a baby with a mobile or a little kid in a toy store or a candy shop. Also, because narcissists are so pathologically obsessed with a whole bunch of empty, superficial crap that doesn't actually mean anything, like money and image and possessions and degrees and social class and rank and title and some kind of imaginary apocryphal hierarchy that they have invented arbitrarily in their warped, sick, dark, ugly, twisted little minds, they usually get those things. But as non-narcissists and non-bullies, it's very important that we ourselves not get distracted by pretty shiny things. Don't get me wrong, most of the people who bullied me had absolutely no redeeming qualities. It's like, dude, why are you alive? All you do is hurt people. That's all you do. You don't do anything else. If I were you, I would unalive myself. I don't know why you bother, but I'm not the God who created you. To borrow from Queen Mimi, ain't none of my business, it's tea though. When it comes to most workplace bullies, I get it. I understand. They have to bully because that is the only way they can feel good or indeed feel anything at all. If I were them, I'd hate myself too. As they say, sometimes low self-esteem is just good common sense. But some workplace bullies do have some things going for them. I have been bullied by some attractive, intelligent, and competent people. When I got the job at the engineering firm, I thought for once I was going to be surrounded by people who were better than I was and who would thus leave me alone. I thought that these cerebral engineers would be so intelligent, overeducated, and absorbed in their very demanding and complicated work that they would look down on me, dismiss and disregard me, and have no time for me, which is exactly what I want. I have expended the overwhelming majority of my energy for the last quarter of a century on desperately trying to push everyone away and get everyone to just leave me alone. I want to be invisible. If I could have a superpower, it would be invisibility. Instead, every employee in the very small company was a raging high-level narc. I was bullied by everyone in the building. The boss was an advanced alcoholic with the worst case of NPD I have ever encountered in my life. And Bish was so psychotically obsessed with me that she straight up stalked me around Memorial Park. Her coworker, the one she complained to, who also bullied me, stalked me around another city park over a year after I was bullied out of the company. I thought I was going to work in a professional environment with intellectuals who stayed in their heads all day. No one told me I might as well have been working at KFC. Like I said, Greed had a PhD in chemical engineering from one of the top schools in the country. She had a husband and 2 kids. At the time, they were in the process of buying a house. She was not unattractive. I mean, I didn't hate the way she looked. I wasn't mad about it. She was blowing out her hair, dressing to the nines, and stomping into the office in her designer heels every day to earn 6 figures, which I knew because our alcoholic boss left the salary information of all employees on my laptop. And that wasn't the last time that would happen to me. 10 years later, when I got the job at the nonprofit for domestic and sexual violence, again, I was ecstatic. I thought, surely when confronted with the full horror of the reality that they were dealing with through the clients every day, my coworkers would all be so evolved, enlightened, ascended, and united in a common mission, vision, and purpose of service to humanity that they would be above the petty bullshit. Instead, I was bullied by yet another Greed, my immediate supervisor, whom I nicknamed Yeast Infection. She had just completed her doctorate in, you're gonna love this, social work. Someone who spoke very passionately about helping the downtrodden in society, but who at the same time spent several months running all over the workplace, smearing her subordinate in order to ensure that I got a bad review based on her lies that would become a permanent part of my employment record. The altruistic virtue signaling was strong in that one, and the hypocrisy was not lost on me. But I have to admit that yeast infection too had quite a few positive qualities. She was 10 years younger and taller than I am. Great hair, fantastic figure, always chic and fashionable, dressed in all the latest trends and styles, above average IQ, I would say around 120, good at the work, and seemingly well-liked and popular with good rapport with her colleagues. Yeast infection swore up and down that she came from an ostensibly healthy family, which doubtful. People do not buy these people's personal self-mythologies. If someone is bullying you, clearly that person was not parented properly. She had a live-in boyfriend, she was pregnant, he was buying her a luxury car, and she even had a cat. When I first met yeast infection, I initially liked her because I was attracted to her intellect. She had a Gemini sun and a Virgo moon. That gave her a high Mercury chart. And she could sustain intellectual conversations about interesting things. I mean, I don't need another 4 hours of lupus education again in my life, but she was the kind of person who watched historical documentaries in her leisure time. She appeared to be an autodidact and a lifelong learner who enjoyed discussing the information she was learning, which I respected. And she never once objectified me, which scores major points in my book. For once, I didn't have to white knuckle through yet another monologue about my fucking hair. The point with these examples is that almost everyone who ever bullied me had everything in this life that I don't. Money, property, luxury vehicles, even spouses, partners, kids, pets. Some of them, as I stated, were younger and better looking than I was, and some of them had higher levels of education than I do. Greed and yeast infection were 2 of 3 women with PhDs, all younger than I am, who bullied me, and some of them were even better at the work than I was. And yet they were all still empty, superficial, pathologically jealous, and mean. Full of hatred, jealousy, envy, malice, and spite. Nothing, no amount of intellect, education, money, or even relationships is enough for these people to simply be at peace with themselves. They cannot stop looking outside of themselves and selfishly coveting what other people have to fill the void within. I had nothing that they had. I come from one of the most dysfunctional families imaginable, and yet I am more secure and a better person than all of the people who bullied me put together. Like what in the actual Addams family? I had a couple of nicknames for greed because I almost always nickname my workplace bullies, and I have a short video on that. The first one was Cockroach because, y'all, girlfriend looked like she was kicking out some antenna for real. And the second one was Greed because apparently nothing, no amount of education, money, possessions, or even family was enough for her to simply be a decent human being. In her song The Grudge, which she wrote about Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodrigo sings, "You have everything and you want more. You must be insecure. You must be so unhappy." I read every comment left on this channel, and I can't help but notice the generalizations. And of course, they're all about women, because misogyny is alive and well in 2024. Women this and women that, and then there are all the generalizations about other protected classes like immigrant status and orientation. Greed was a practicing Muslim who wore hijab during Ramadan, and yeast infection, as well as the other PhD'd woman who also bullied me, said she was Catholic. So did the bully at the tutoring center who attempted black magic against me and my colleagues. In a digital age, on an overcrowded planet where everyone is drowning in media oversaturation and information overload, to a certain extent, I understand the temptation to generalize. It's overwhelming. But my question to you is, does it matter if the bully is a man or a woman or an immigrant or Muslim or gay or not or whatever. Does any of that actually make any difference? One of the points I make about workplace bullying is that all workplace bullies are the same everywhere, in every profession. Workplace bullying truly does not discriminate, and I have a short video on that too. I knew that before I started this channel, and my knowledge has only been confirmed by interacting with you. People watch my videos from all over the world, and some of you have asked me if we worked at the same job and with the same people. One of the reasons that some of us believe there must be a spiritual component to this is that all workplace bullies do and say all the same stuff. At some point you have to ask yourself, how is it possible that I'm interacting with exactly the same person, only in a different body? They are the brown shirts, all marching in unison, taking orders from a higher authority. All workplace bullies are the same because they are all working for the same employer, if you know what I mean. And we, all of us, myself included, really need to stop calling people stupid. That is exactly what workplace bullies do, and that's stooping to their level, which is giving them exactly what they want. I hate calling people stupid because stupid is such a petty and facile insult. Anytime we don't like someone, whether it's workplace bullies or other drivers on the road, the first thing we do is call them stupid. After that, it's crazy, especially if it's a woman, and after that, it's immature. Let me go ahead and translate all of those for you. Stupid means you are different from me. Crazy means I don't understand you. And immature means you are not giving me what I want. Granted, I have worked with some workplace bullies who were so stupid, they actually had a reputation for being stupid. Like the minute anyone said their names, everyone would roll their eyes and go, oh my God, that guy is so fucking stupid. I have worked in places where the cumulative IQ could not have been above 80. When I worked in corporate communications, I was bullied by a mob of self-proclaimed senior writers who could not even spell, let alone string together a single clear, coherent, or grammatically correct sentence in their native language. And sometimes the stupid bullies are the worst bullies in the place. They have to bully to compensate for their imposter syndrome. They can't rest on their laurels because they don't have any. However, throwing down snap judgments like stupid and crazy and immature on people just because we don't like them actually is stupid. Name calling is indicative of someone who does not like to think. It's casuistry and it completely misses the mark. Are they crazy? Well, NPD is a mental health condition that is in the DSM, but most narcissists do not qualify for a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. And just because someone exhibits narcissistic tendencies, like the propensity to bully, does not make that person a full-blown narcissist. Greed wasn't, and yeast infection wasn't either. Some workplace bullies do have some certifiable mental health conditions, not the least of which is substance abuse disorder, that are affecting their behavior. But a lot of workplace bullies can't claim mental illness as an excuse. They're just mean. Are they immature? Well, if a grown-ass woman with 2 small children of her own is making funny faces to another bully behind the target's back, yeah, I would say that's pretty much the textbook definition of immaturity. Unfortunately, about half of the workplace bullying behaviors that I have identified do look a lot like the schoolyard playground. However, the problem is not stupidity. I would think it would take a fair amount of intellect to get a PhD in chemical engineering. If there were any correlation at all between IQ and ethics or morality, then there would be no such thing as the evil genius or the criminal mastermind. Donald Trump's a Gemini. He's fucking brilliant. Genius IQ. His Rasputin, Elon Musk, it's well known, has an IQ of 155, and he has no empathy. Is Blake Lively stupid? Blake Lively's a quintuple Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. That means her Mercury is exalted. She is most likely a very bright, sharp, and quick-witted woman. She's not stupid. She's tone deaf because of her privilege, but she's not stupid. What I saw in that video was not a stupid person. I saw a bully having an inappropriate response to being triggered because of a lack of self-awareness. Every spiritual tradition in the world teaches us that intellect means nothing. Nothing. Bullies like greed and yeast infection are proof. IQ and education are nothing more than cachets for your resume that get you the job in the first place. Other than that, they're pretty much useless. IQ is some kind of weird social construct that was invented about 100 years ago, some say with nefarious intent. None of this stuff matters. Gender, age, race, religion, nationality, language, orientation, none of it. Spirit doesn't see any of that, and you can't take it with you. When you depart this earthly realm, you will have nothing but the quality of your spirit and your karma. If you're proud of your degrees, good for you. That's really great, and I'm really happy for you, but you're not going to paper the walls of heaven with them. What we have here, rather, is a lack of wisdom and a problem with critical thinking. Wisdom is a spiritual quality. Workplace bullies have not even figured out the first law of spirituality 101, otherwise known as karma. Girl, that shit is basic. Like, if you don't give a crap about other people, do you at least care about your own soul's salvation? And the problem isn't cultural either. I spent 3 years living abroad and never detected any substantial difference in human nature. Psychology is a science. It's a soft science, but it's a science because it replicates. There are angels and assholes in every country. And the profession doesn't matter either. People contact me from McDonald's. People contact me from the big tech firms. There are migrants at the border and refugees in camps all over the world who are more spiritually evolved than all of the people who bullied me put together. Spiritually speaking, they are light years ahead of greed or yeast infection, who, despite their degrees and their fashion sense, were so dark, ugly, and nasty that I couldn't stand to sit in the same room with them. I wrote about this in my essay on workplace bullying. Why is it when you go to the shops, one clerk is stunningly rude and the one right next to her is decent and pleasant? There's no demonstrative difference between the two. Same position and pay grade, and they may belong to the same social categories. So what's the difference? The only difference is the amount of light in their hearts. The difference is spiritual. The problem is spiritual. It's a spiritual problem. Ultimately, bullies like greed and yeast infection just confuse me. Yes, if you come from a third world country and you grow up surrounded by endemic poverty, disease, violence, and corruption with no support system, spiritual or mundane, and you join the 27 Club or you end up on drugs or in prison or both, I understand. I get it. Some people come into this life with the cards stacked against them. They really don't stand a chance, and that very well may be their karma. But some of my bullies had resources. They had blessings. I believe your blessings in life are like the holds, the footholds and the handholds that you use in rock climbing. You're not supposed to rest on your laurels. You're supposed to use the blessings that you were given to evolve. Lift yourself up. Aim higher, do better, grow, learn, improve, up level, and keep getting better and better every day in every way, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and above all, spiritually. One of the reasons Angelina Jolie can accomplish so much with her life is that she doesn't have to spend 4 hours every morning blowing out her hair. She woke up like this. She's a genius too. She's a Gemini too. Props to her. She did what she was supposed to do. She leveraged the resources she had at her disposal to do more with her life than just be hot and rich. I'm standing on my own 2 feet, grounded, centered, and rooted in my well-defined identity and boundaries, doing the best I can with what I have been given, and never looking outside of myself to anyone or anything for external validation, approval, admiration, or attention, and never comparing, competing, or allowing myself to experience the demon of jealousy because I don't want to fuck up my karma. I'm grateful for the blessings that I have been given. I have enough humility and self-awareness to acknowledge my challenges and limitations, and I ask to download additional graces from the universe on an as-needed basis. You don't need a PhD in anything to do that. That doesn't take very much time, and it doesn't cost any money. Put in the hard work to cultivate a beautiful spirit inside your soul first. Then and only then can you begin to attract what you want. That's why it's called being attractive. Attractive people don't chase, they attract. If you have to chase, you're probably not attractive. Doing it the other way around is the prosperity gospel. It's empty supply seeking and filling the void within by taking other people's stuff. And it's what Melanie Tanya Evans calls putting ice cream on top of poop. Greed was basically a very expensive and overpriced blowout mounted on top of a great big steaming pile of dog shit. Why seemingly intelligent people who have all of the tools that they need to evolve and up-level out of the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy still consistently fail to do so, I don't know. I simply don't have enough esoteric knowledge or even knowledge of basic human psychology to understand. It could very well be some kind of neurological problem, like some kind of cognitive malfunction or impairment in the brain. It could be social media. You know, everyone on social media is living their best life ever. Everyone's fabulous. Maybe social media is making people feel bad about themselves because empty people are externally focused and live entirely in a world of comparisons. It could also be just good old-fashioned low self-esteem. Maybe some of these people have some kind of blocks, some tapes or programs set up buried deep in their subconscious, some false or limiting beliefs that they don't deserve to be good people. I know it's hard to believe, but every human being on the planet is actually behaving in perfect accordance with his or her self-concept. Workplace bullies' behavior is appalling because that's how they really see themselves. They really believe they are monsters, so they behave like monsters. I believe I wrote in my essay on workplace bullying that some workplace bullies may actually have an unconscious death wish with the way that they are screwing up their karma that badly. It's like people who don't eat organic food. They always argue that it's too expensive, but the truth is they don't feel good enough. I do know that every workplace bully has entity attachments. If you're spiritual, I think you can agree with me. If you're really sensitive, sometimes you can literally see them, which makes it just slightly disturbing to have to sit in the same room with this person all day. Whenever I think about yeast infection, I can literally see a humanoid-like demon standing behind her, death gripping her soul in a chokehold. She even had a messed up throat chakra, no verbal skills, and she was always hoarse. She was literally losing her voice. In the case of the more psychopathic and sociopathic ones, like for example the bully at the tutoring center who was a certifiable sociopath, we may be talking more about full-on possession. And again, sometimes you can literally see it. Again, the black eyes. In this sense, they are not so much evil per se as actually tragic. Spiritual warfare is real, and they are losing the battle because they are allowing their souls to be co-opted in service to the forces of darkness. Some workplace bullies may have been exposed to something unsavory at some point, especially if they have a history of substance abuse, and they may even tell you that because that's how you do it. Because trauma, like all human memory, is stored in the tissues of the physical body. People indulge in substances because they don't want to be in the body, because they don't want to feel their pain. However, when you escape the physical body, you leave it open for something unsavory to come in and take up residence. The bully at the tutoring center admitted to us, with her usual oversharing and lack of boundaries, that she had a history of drug and alcohol abuse and yeast infection, was once married to an alcoholic who later died of a drug overdose. Workplace bullies are people who do not have a very strong or powerful spiritual support system, angels, guides, and ancestors, because they didn't line one up before they chose to incarnate, which doesn't make very much sense to me. I mean, if you're diabetic and you're going to take a trip to Thailand, don't you think you would pack some extra insulin along just in case? And they have no spiritual hygiene. They need a clearing. They have money. They need to hire a priest, shaman, curandera, healer, witch, or at the very least a Reiki practitioner to cleanse and align their chakras, cut cords to all attachments, and cleanse their homes. Long story longer, don't be fooled. Don't get taken in. Don't be blinded by the glamour. I know it's tempting, especially when you're desperate. Because I was so consistently objectified and dehumanized absolutely everywhere I went throughout my entire adult life, I came to over-prioritize intellect because I thought that was the antidote to the superficiality that followed me everywhere I went for 30 years. When I encounter someone who can meet me on an intellectual level without objectifying my body, that feels like throwing a life preserver to a drowning victim. But you know what they say, never shop when you're hungry. Hungry people make terrible shoppers because they buy a bunch of junk. It's very important not to pedestalize people, but instead to use your excellent intuition to sense what kind of person they really are instead of who you want them to be for you so you can feel good. And over-prioritizing intellect is dangerous for targets of workplace bullying for another reason. If you identify as someone with an above average IQ, do know that intelligent people are very likely to be abused by narcissists. Why? Well, you're in your head, especially if you have trauma. Again, trauma is stored in the physical body. And if you have trauma, your body may no longer be a safe space for you. You may have taken the elevator up to the rarefied ivory tower of your intellect and moved from your heart into your head, where analysis paralysis is your happy place. But when you do that, you bypass your emotional body, which means you also overlook your intuition. So you start missing the red flags, and you can do it in interpersonal relationships too. Oh, good. This person is smart and they have this IQ and this education and these degrees and this job and they make this amount of money and they went to the right schools and they come from the right family or the right neighborhood and they have the right religion or the right politics. So that means things are going to be different this time. Again, the biggest red flag of workplace bullying is simply your own intuition, which is your higher self's knowing about the quality of another person's spirit, because your soul knows everything, and that has nothing to do with IQ or education or degrees. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Intelligence is not your defense. Only God is. 2 members of my family have had special needs, and the mother of one of them told me a story about a boy with Down syndrome. Someone asked him how he deals with bullying, because that's the kind of world we live in. People bully people with Down syndrome. Think I'm gonna leave Earth? Think I'm gonna get off the mothership? And his response was simple. He said, some people are nice, some people are mean. A bully is not a stupid person. It's not a woman. It's not a fat person or a gay person or an immigrant. A bully is a low-level spirit. So before you jump into the comments with sweeping generalizations about women bullies and fat bullies and gay bullies and immigrant bullies and liberal bullies, take a moment and just remember, some people are nice, some people are mean. I hope that helps. Take care.